audio and the visual.
Well, maybe you could handle Hollywood Squares. This meeting of the committee will come to order. Will commissioners, guests, and those on the call please rise for a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes. Please unmute your microphones by dialing *9. For those on Zoom, raise your digital hand now.
Let me check real quick. It looks like, sorry. Mr.
The
Chairman,
administrator will tally the hands and announce the first speaker.
Mr. Chairman, we appear to have one public that would like to comment. Joel, I believe it's Joel Ibbotson.
Yes, sir, that is me.
Joel, you are on with the Berry County Board of Commissioners.
Good morning, Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. I was watching my kids play Friday morning. My daughter's 8, my son is 2, and they were trying to play with a ball, throwing it back and forth, when my daughter realized that if she placed my 2-year-old son at the top of our staircase, her brother could then throw the ball at the same horizontal distance as she could. Even though their understanding and physical abilities were vastly different, it put them at a level playing field. They were looking eye to eye. This is what we are looking for from the board. Though I did not expect to get the lesson from my daughter, it paints the perfect picture of what we the people yearn for. We want to have a discussion eye to eye. We're yearning for a chance to have the board give an opportunity for the discussion on ways the county can give relief to the restaurants and other businesses from this pandemic. Now, to finish up the rest of the story, what happened with my children, my son soon figured out that he could use his lateral advantage to throw a chair down the stairs at his sister, and he quickly figured out under our disciplinary policy of the Ibbotson household that he crossed a line. However, I say that to say this. If you give us the chance to join with you in discussion, we will not take advantage of your courtesy. I speak with confidence when I say to you that I can extend that commitment on behalf of all members of our forum. We simply want to have discussion on how we can protect our citizen neighbors. I know we have new members on the board. I understand the state is using intimidation tactics. However, should not the taxpayer at the very least have the peace of mind to know that this board has not forgotten them? I implore this board to please have an eye-to-eye discussion with the community they serve. Let them know you have not forgotten them. And if it is okay with the chair, I would like to read a public comment on behalf of Aaron Gross. He is at work right now.
Before I greenlight that request, I do want to have a conversation with commissioners. Joel did contact me over the weekend and asked if he could read a statement on behalf of somebody else. And I said, I would like the board to weigh in on it. Our bylaws do not state that this is permissible, but in the past we have allowed it. My position right now, I think today we'll permit it, but in the future, it needs to be a 1-to-1 ratio, one person on the call for every public comment. Fortunately, that means if you have to grab somebody off the street or find a friend, that's what it's going to require. But I don't want to get into the habit or into a situation where someone comes up to public comment and says, hey, I got 50 letters to read on behalf of somebody else. So what does the board concur with what the chair thinks?
I am fine with it, Ben.
Okay.
Bruce is fine with it, Ben.
All right.
Yeah. So is John, Ben, and down the line, maybe we should look at if you have extra comments, they should send them to you and you read them. from someone else.
Yep.
But today's fine with Joel.
Today's fine.
I'm okay with
Okay.
it.
Thanks, everybody. All right, Joel, you can begin.
All right, thank you. And before I start reading, I want to mention that Aaron Gross from City of Hastings, he is one lives in Hoot Gibson's district. I'm reading this verbatim, so bear with me. I yield my 3 minutes to Joel Ibbotson on my behalf to read this public comment verbatim since I'm unable to attend this meeting due to my work schedule. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to Chairperson Geiger. In all the meetings this year, he has been soliciting public comment before taking a vote of the members. This gesture only takes a couple seconds and is greatly appreciated. I call on the members of the public who use this time to abide by decorum of the board meeting, be respectful of the members of the board, and mindful of time limits. This promotes discussion and the free exchange of ideas. I look forward to productive term with this board. That said, there is a crisis in progress as we speak, and that is the debilitating state orders from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. It is clearly allowing the governor to continue her emergency executive powers by proxy through that department, which is affecting people's lives and livelihoods on an ongoing basis. I concede there are casualties of this pandemic. The media focuses on those who have passed, but you seldom hear of those that live. After the pandemic is over, what about those of us who remain? What about the livelihoods and businesses that are lost as a result of bad governance? I trust that this community, or that the board will remember and act on behalf of the constituents whose lives are affected by this. The small businesses that are in this community make up part of the culture of the city of Hastings and Berry County. I have heard from the governor of New York and the mayor of Chicago about opening up and ending these lockdowns, and it troubles me that they are the bellwether that we are hearing from currently. The skeptics might say that the businesses will pull through because of the lockdown will end on February 1st. They can keep going a little further. Given the track record of the governor, we cannot depend on that date. In an economic and social political storm that we are currently going through, they may not have a little more time. I call on the members of the board to consider taking the following actions during this meeting with the understanding that this is a request and I do not have standing to do so. Make a motion to table all current agenda items until the next meeting. Make a motion to suspend the rules and have an open discussion to discern on how to take a constitutional stance, specifically in regards to the emergency orders from the state that are financially ruining the small businesses of Berry County. Make a motion to immediately dismiss all cease and desist orders, as well as fines placed on businesses, churches, church schools, and or other entities since January 21st, 2020, and henceforth until a time the board sees fit. Again, I understand these are merely suggestions, but if any one of the board members can make these motions and or provide support for said motions. I want the board to remember the phrase earlier in this comment a little bit further. On November 10th, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald was steaming Superior, Wisconsin to a steel mill on Zug Island near Detroit. At 3:30 p.m., she radioed the Arthur M. Anderson to report that she was taking on water. 7:10 p.m., when the Anderson notified the Edmund Fitzgerald of an upbound ship and asked how she was doing, the Edmund Fitzgerald replied, "We are holding our own." That is the last anyone heard from her. No distress signal was received, and 10 minutes later, the Anderson lost the ability to either reach Fitzgerald by radio or to detect her on radar. They were almost to the safety of Whitefish Bay when they broke apart and sank. I'm sure they were hoping that they could go just a little bit further. You have to ask yourself, can the businesses of this county go a little bit further? Had the Edmund Fitzgerald made 17 more miles, they may have made it. At a max speed of 16 miles an hour, this was only a little over an hour. The restaurant restriction they claim will be over by February 1st, maybe just a week over from today. I trust that the board will take action to make Berry County a safe harbor for its citizens and businesses. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. Interviews for the Parks and Recreation Commission. We have 2 positions for citizens at large. We have 4 applicants: Deborah Jensen, Sarah Nelson, Heather Wing, and Russ Yarger. So can we bring all 4 of those individuals into the Zoom call? Michael, I'm going to have to rely on you. I can't see everybody on my screen. Are they here?
Debbie Jensen's here.
Okay, Debbie's here. Sarah, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Heather, are you here?
Chairman, we received a correspondence. I'm going to find it from Heather. Is that right? See if I can find that while you.
Is she not applying for this position?
So Heather indicated that would like to remove my application for consideration from both the Parks and Recreation Board and the Community Corrections Advisory Board.
Okay, thank
Would
you.
like to be considered for the Conservation Easement Board.
Perfect. Russ Yarger, are you on the call? Russell, are you here? Okay, Sarah and Deborah, if you could unmute your microphones. We're going to give each of you an opportunity to give an opening statement on why you want to be considered for the Parks and Recreation Commission, and then we'll go into questions. So, Deborah, if you want to begin by introducing yourself and the reasons for your application.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to interview. It's a little different doing it by Zoom, but we're all pretty prepped on these virtual meetings by now. So I did serve on the Parks and Recreation Board previously from 2007 when it was first formed separate from the Charlton Park Board until 2014. And during that time, I assisted with 2 prior versions of the Park and Recreation Plan, and also the development of McEwen Bridge Park, which I think is a big asset to the county, as well as working on the Trails Committee and various other assignments. So I've had quite a few years break. I felt it was time for a change, and I'm pretty excited to see what I see happening with the board right now. I always felt that the kind of separation of Charlton Park from the Recreation Board was difficult to manage. It's one of our primary recreation assets and historical destinations. So bringing everything together, I think, is a good move. So I feel I can bring a lot back to the board. I currently I'm a landscape architect by profession, have a lot of experience in park and recreation and trail design. I'm currently a state park planner for the Parks and Recreation Division of the DNR. So I get to see a lot of parks across the state and do detailed long-range planning for those. So I think I can bring my expertise to the board to assist with any planning and potential developments. And I really do feel that the recreation and history of Barry County is integral to the quality of life. It's why people enjoy living here. It's an attraction to people to move here. So it's a lot more than just getting outside and having some fun. And we've seen that even more with the pandemic. Outdoor recreation has gone through the roof. Some areas are getting overwhelmed, but we have a lot of new users. It's a potential to kind of keep that interest there and expand upon that. So I feel that the county itself doesn't have a huge amount of land mass. We have, 2 pretty unique parks and, of course, the Paul Henry Thornapple Trail. So there's some great assets, but they're somewhat limited. So to expand on that, I think partnerships are key. And there's a lot we can do to, promote the land and water recreation opportunities in this county and to make those accessible for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Nelson, the floor is now yours to make an opening comment.
Good morning. Thank you all for taking the time to interview me for this position. I had previously served on the Parks and Recreation Board before the remerger with the Charlton Park Board, at which time we did need to cut down our membership, and so I yielded my seat on the board so that Doug Klein could continue. So the reason that serving on Parks and Recreation is so important to me, there's really two main reasons. One being that it relates to my professional job. I am the district manager at the Berry Conservation District. And so what we do is we assess natural resource needs in the county, and then we assist community members and organizations in addressing those needs. I think that's a really important perspective to have on a parks board. We need to view parks as outdoor natural spaces. It's actually in the parks plans to implement best management practices, and I think that the district can help in many ways on that. So recommending best management practices, helping with natural resources education, invasive species management and identification, tree and forest health, grant writing, program referrals. This is all stuff that I do in my day-to-day at the district. The second reason is really more personal. So I've been in Berry County just for about 6 years now, so for not for that long, but I do feel that parks are an integral part of who I am as a human being. In fact, the thing that got me to stick around in Berry County to begin with was my job offer for the Conservation District, which I got while volunteering at a tree sale at Charlton Park. And then the first real group of friends that I met in the county was the Berry County Bird Club. And some memorable experiences. They inspired me to go see my first ever loon at Charlton Park, which was a big moment for me. And also we take a lot of field trips on the Paul Henry Thornapple Trail. And so that's really how I got introduced to the trail. Since then, I use the trail regularly. I've used it to train for several 5Ks, including 2 on the trail, which were fantastic community events. And then most recently, I trained for my first ever triathlon on that trail. I also met a social group of runners that uses the trail to gather and run on Wednesday evenings. So that's a fantastic way that I've met some new folks as well. I also picked up a new hobby and met new friends at the Great Lakes Longbow Invitational at Charlton Park, and that is an incredible event. I'm so glad that it's so close to home. We also do our Youth Day out at Charlton Park, which is hands down the most joyful day of the year for me. I don't personally have kids, but to see all those families recreating together and enjoying their time together outdoors is just fantastic. So I think what it boils down for me is that Berry County parks aren't just the physical spaces. They're the people, the community coming together in those spaces. And I think that is just, it's fantastic. It's wonderful for the health, the happiness and vitality of our community. And I really enjoyed being a part of that when I was on the Parks and Rec board before. And I would really love to continue doing that on the Parks and Rec Commission now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to go into questions from commissioners. We're going to start with Commissioner Catherine Getty, who has been a leader in parks and trails here in Berry County. She's going to ask one question, and the question will be posed to both of you. So we'll start with Sarah in answering it, and then we'll go to Deborah. So Commissioner Getty.
Thanks to both of you for being here and for serving in the past. I've served with both of them, and they're both would bring a tremendous amount of professionalism to the board. My question is funding is always an issue with parks. We don't have a tremendous budget. So any improvements will likely require grant applications and leveraging state, local, federal grant money. What do you have in terms of experience in applying for grants and administering grants?
Thanks, Catherine. So as far as applying for grants, designing programs and projects, applying for grants and managing those projects and programs through grants, that is how I've kept my job for the last 6 years. It is the foundation of all of our work at the Conservation District. We don't currently have operational state funding, and so everything we do, every service that we offer to the community is through funding that we have gone out and found, and a lot of that is grant funding. So I feel extremely comfortable with grant writing, with grant management and project management. And is it okay if I add one more little thing to this talk about finances? I think something else that's really important, especially since the boards have merged again, is diversifying. So I don't think that just seeking grants is the answer, although as with the district, it's going to be key. But when you look at Charlton Park, I would say that Charlton Park has a more robust funding system than the park system as a whole. And one of the real strengths of that is their diversification. So things that we have talked about already on the Parks and Rec board, which I would like to see brought to discussion again, is the formation of a friends group, for example, to do fundraising. And a lot of times that's needed for serving as match for grants. And so there are lots of different sources of funding, and I think it's very important that a group not rely too heavily on one single one. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question, Commissioner, for Debbie?
Debbie, grant funding is something that I think the Parks Board will depend on, especially for major park improvements. What is your experience in applying for grants, administering grants, in your experience so far?
Okay. Well, it's been a big part of my job for probably the last 20 years. I hesitate to say that because it makes me sound very old, but previous to working for the state, I worked for a private landscape architecture firm, and one of my primary jobs there was to write 5-year park and recreation plans, and then to follow up and apply for grants for projects. So that included Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund, Land and Water Conservation Fund, as well as the various funding from Department of Transportation for trails and the different waterways funding as well. So I've had a lot of experience of that. Some of the projects that you know of, I wrote the grant application for McEwen Bridge Park, and also wrote the 2 different grant applications for the Hastings Riverwalk, which was a match of trust fund and transportation enhancement grants, which is difficult to do those 2 together. So a lot of experience with that. At the state, I work hand in hand with the people that administer these grants, as well as the Waterways Program. And I'm currently working out of class as the grants and services manager in the trails section that administers the transportation improvement grants and motorized, which doesn't really apply here, but a lot of different grant programs. So yes, I've had extensive experience. The challenge with grants is finding the right project to make sure it's going to score well in the program, which I've had experience too. And then the second challenge is always finding the matching funds. You are very rarely going to find a grant that's going to give you 100% funding. So it means a commitment or from the county or an alternative funding source to be able to match those. But I do think, looking at the trust fund list for the county, McEwen Bridge was some years ago now, and prior to that, I think the previous grant application was 1991 for Charlton Park. So I think it's time to look at some of those funding sources. It's also exciting that the American Outdoors Act has passed, so that frees up a lot more funding in the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So there's definitely money out there.
Thanks, Debbie.
Can't hear you, Ben.
Dave Schiniver gave me a cool new mute button, and I just learned how to work it. Commissioner Campbell, we're going to go to you for questions next. Do you have any questions for our applicants?
I would just like to say to both of them, although my knowledge with Parks and Recreation obviously limited, it's very obvious that both candidates here are very qualified, and appreciate them stepping up. I guess I would like to direct this more at Sarah. She did say she had some past experience on the board. Could she zero in on just how long that was?
Yeah,
Sarah?
absolutely. It was definitely not as long as Debbie served. I want to say it was about 18 months that I was on the board before we merged.
Thank you. That's all I have, Ben.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Connor?
Thank you, Chairman Geiger. My question is, when making a decision on a board, name 3 primary decision-making considerations that you would consider.
We'll start with Debbie. 3 primary, considerations, decision-making considerations.
When making a decision on a board, name 3 primary decision-making considerations that you would consider.
Okay, well, first of all, I think it's important to listen and make sure that you understand the issue, understand the facts, and ask whatever questions you need to ask to make an informed decision. Secondly, when you're representing a board, you're not representing yourself, you're representing the citizens of the county. So to consider how that decision impacts other people, looking at it from different points of view, not just your own. And I guess the third is sustainability, looking at that big picture. Not just making a decision in the moment that is going to have ripple effects that you might not have considered or thought about. So, how sustainable is that decision? Is it going to hold in the long term?
Thank you very much. Sarah?
Yeah, so thanks, Vivian. I would start with, is it something that's needed and identified in our plan, first of all? The work that, especially with Parks and Recreation, should be in line with our vision for County Parks and Recreation, which shows that there's a need from the community, and as that is a cooperative document. Second, I would look at the feasibility of it. Do we have the resources that we need to make it happen? Is it a feasible project? And then, as Debbie mentioned, I would look at the future of it as well, as far as maintenance goes. So with parks especially, a lot of times folks will focus on acquisition and building new things. But as it's outlined in both the Berry County Parks Plan and also the Charlton Park Plan, it's really important to make sure that you can maintain and upkeep all of that infrastructure and land.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you both for those good answers. Ben, could I ask a singular question to Debbie?
Absolutely.
So Debbie, when I read your resume and it asked if you were available, one of your answers was occasionally with advance notice. Could you go into that a little bit?
I think, unless I misspoke, so yes, I'm available evenings, pretty much every evening, all the time, and weekends. That comment was particularly regarding weekday, during the day meetings. I have a big commitment at work, so with advance notice, I can take time off and plan accordingly, like I did this morning. But I have a full-time job, so that's all I meant by that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We'll go to John Smelker. Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ben. I don't have any questions. I want to thank both applicants. I think we have some very good applicants for this, and thank you for applying.
Commissioner Dave Jackson.
Morning. Thank you both for applying too. And just big picture, you both have some very valuable experience on the board previously. What is your vision for parks in Berry County going forward? I mean, I hate to use the word stalemate, but funding is a challenge. Growth is a challenge. And I think, as Sarah pointed out, maintaining what you have is also a challenge, being a non-mandated setup. But what's your vision going forward for these parks in Berry County? Deborah, if you want to answer that first, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Vision going forwards. Well, I think it comes back to quality of life and promoting that to our citizens and to visitors as well. I do believe that looking after what you have has to come first. So taking care of maintenance and looking at sustainable funding sources is important. And then, as I mentioned before, I think partnerships are key too. We have a lot of townships and the large amount of state land in the county, and we can leverage that and work with townships, communities, schools to promote other spaces that we don't necessarily have to manage ourselves. I also think there's a big opportunity for the Thornapple River as well. I was interested to see in the recreation plan some ideas about water trails and heritage trails. There's a lot of history to tell about the county, and whether that's in the parks or on the water or on the trail, I think that's something we can do that isn't kind of a huge expense. So I think we need to look at what we've got and how we can best leverage that through partnerships and the resources that we have to enhance the quality of life for our residents and give people places to go and connections to make.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave. Thanks. So I think it's really important to me when serving on a board that I be more invested in the collective vision than perhaps my own vision, while being able to bring a fresh perspective to the implementation of that vision. So the vision, the collective vision that I see for Berry County Parks really has three parts. So the first is just kind of that basic, planning, maintaining, preserving the collections that already exist at the park, at Charlton Park, doing website maintenance, that sort of thing. I do think that includes more sustainable and diversified funding. And I think that we've taken the first step towards that sustainability by joining the two boards back together. The unified administration of those is key. And I think that that's going to help us be able to move forward to seek out more sustainable funding. I do think personally that a friends group for the parks as a nonprofit is going to be huge. You see it in a lot of counties that have really thriving parks departments. So, but obviously that's something that needs to be brought to the board. The second part of the vision that I see, the collective vision, is to have whole county service. And so this includes things like seeking out the cold zones, as I would call them, in the county where there aren't many recreation facilities available. And sometimes that may mean seeking to purchase additional land through the county. Sometimes that may mean working with other local units of government and schools to help them enhance their own resources, like we do through the mini grant program. So it's going to depend heavily on partnerships as well. And then there's another issue with accessibility. So having countywide service doesn't just mean geographically, but it also means being able to serve all people of all ages year round. And so I think it's really important to enhance what we already have to be able to meet that. And then the third part of this kind of collective vision that I see is what I would call expansion. So that's offering new, unique experiences like we did when we developed the Thornapple Birding Trail. And also, as Debbie mentioned, with the river trail that we've been discussing and looking into, also enhancing linear trails and green corridors. So I think that can tie in a lot with the Blue Zones project that's happening. So that's really exciting as well. And the expansion might also include, as I already mentioned, purchase of new land. So if there's an opportunity where it's either offering water access, so riverfront access, or it's connected to an existing park or in one of those cold zones, I think it would be important to look at those and consider those. And then also new infrastructure. So things like the campground study that's happening for Charlton Park or new playground equipment. I think that all of those things are very important. Those are all things that are outlined in the current parks plans. They're all things that have been worked on. And I think that's the vision that I would want to work towards.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, Hoot Gibson. Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Chairman Geiger, I don't see that Hoot's still on the call.
Impossible. Hoot doesn't miss meetings.
I know, he was here earlier.
I don't think Commissioner Gibson would be, I don't think he would want us to hold this up to wait for him. So thank you both for your time and your application to the Parks Commission. We will make a decision soon.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, we have Dwayne Secord, who is interviewing for the Berry County Community Mental Health and Substance Abuse Authority Board. Good morning, Dwayne.
Morning, Ben.
How are you doing? How's that new grandbaby?
Well, she's doing okay. Obviously still in the hospital, but we're praying and hoping everything will work out, and she'll be home in 2 or 3 weeks.
That grandbaby's actually my niece too. So, Dwayne, if the floor is yours to give an opening statement and to say why you'd like to serve on this board.
Okay. I would like to serve on the Berry County Community Mental Health Board for a couple reasons. The first reason is I think I have a lot of experience. I am a former employee of Berry County Community Mental Health and feel I have a good knowledge of the operations there and the things that are going on. I know that there's a lot of issues with funding and a lot of times that's related to the state and so I know that the director there has to work hard to get funding from the state in order to continue services. The other thing I think is the fact that I think there's a lot of stigma when it comes to mental illness in Berry County, and I would like to be able to be on the board to maybe impact some of that, try to maybe have a better understanding for the community in regards to helping them understand mental illness a little better. The other thing is I am a lifelong resident of Berry County, and I've always been very loyal to Hastings in particular. And I think I want to give back a little bit locally. I am currently employed part-time as self-employed as a therapist. And I also work at Kellogg Community College as a adjunct professor there. So that's my current qualifications.
Great, thanks. Now, Commissioner Getty sits on the Mental Health Board. Before she dives into her first question, I have one quick one. What are some ways that we as individuals and as county leaders can help eliminate stigma of mental illness?
I think that's a difficult question, but I think the quick answer is to be trying to educate the community a little more. I think a lot of times that includes educating police officers, educating schools, and so a lot of times I think outreach from the community mental health can be helpful with that. We also have I know when I worked there, a program called Peer Support Program, and a lot of times a peer support is a person that has experienced mental illness and they get hired, and as a result of that, they then can go out in the community and demonstrate, hey, I had this stigma, as when I was having services, and really encourage people to seek services when they need it, because I think that's the main reason people don't get services is because of stigma.
Thank you. Commissioner Getty.
Hi, as a new member of the Mental Health Board, do you have, what are the top 3 things that you think I should be aware of?
I think the one thing is obviously funding. I think sometimes boards think they might have a lot of impact on the funding, and I think a lot of times that's not necessarily the case with community mental health because it's a lot of Medicaid and state funding. But I still think there could be making sure that is directed in the right area. I think that the needs to make sure that the programs that are available through community mental health are reaching the consumers or the clients, because sometimes I've had some experiences where mental health boards sometimes will want to focus more on maybe employees rather than the community and trying to help them out. I guess the last thing would be is, like I said, to continue and encourage the area of education and to make sure the community is aware of the services that the community mental health offers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hoot Gibson, you're back. We knew you never left us.
Yeah, I got cut out somehow.
Yeah.
I've been on that board for over 10 years, and looking at his resume, I think he'd be an asset to that board. I have no questions for him, but it's a good applicant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hoot. Dave Jackson.
I agree with Commissioner Gibson's statement there. I think he'd be a great asset to that board, and we appreciate your application. Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
John Smelker.
Hi. Seeing you work with mental health, do you happen to know, excuse at the state level, is there any legislation being worked on to help out with funding on mental health?
I think there's a lot of people that talk about it. It's just hard to see that actually come through. You have not necessarily seen some of that stuff. I know a lot of times when we have these big, killings in schools and stuff, it's always talked about, we're going to get more mental health funding, and it just never seems to trickle down, I think, which is problematic. I'm not sure how I could impact that, but it certainly wish that we had a little more funding for some of those things.
Thank you. That's all I have, Ben.
Thanks. Vivian Connor.
Thank you. Thank you for applying, Mr. Secord. I appreciate your willingness to help the community, your community. I want to talk about the homeless. So what changes could the Mental Health Board make to better help these individuals that are out there? We know that mental health issues are some of the issues that our homeless have to deal with, and some of them, a lot of them, are not served very well by your board, or that board, excuse me.
I do think that we definitely need more infiltration, I guess, into some of those programs of homelessness. I know that I'm a local volunteer for Family Promise, and I've seen some of that homelessness through that. I think one thing that's discouraging or really difficult is to be able to relate and to offer those services to those people that are homeless. The big problem with that is mental health services cannot necessarily be a mandated service. It can't be forced on people. And so I feel that the community mental health should be as welcoming as possible to those people that need those services, and outreach as much as possible to get in contact with programs of homelessness to make people aware of the program that community mental health offers.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer.
Thank you.
Last question, Bruce Campbell.
I too would like to thank Dwayne for his interest in stepping up. I think in a community atmosphere, the more that can happen with more people, the better off we are and the better off we'll become. I personally have had some interest in the mental health department because it has hit home in my family fairly close with various things, and I think education in it is so very important because I personally was not educated in it, so was not aware of many things that take place and what a wide spectrum that takes in, and I do feel it's a very overlooked area. So kudos for Dwayne for stepping up and being involved in this.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne, for your application. I know you to be a good man and have a great heart for service. And I'll also say that it's comments like Commissioner Campbell just made, letting people know that it hits home to us too. That's going to make it easier for people to be comfortable getting services they need. So if there's no objection, we'll dismiss Dwayne and we'll take a 5-minute recess. Committee will stand at recess.
Thank you.
Thank you. all the commissioners back?
Ben, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What happened to Russ Yarger while I was, my computer was out?
He wasn't on the call.
So what are we what are you going to do with him?
We'll have to discuss that. That's a board decision, what we need to do.
So we won't be able to make a decision today then?
We'll have to decide. We're in a tough spot.
Yeah.
I texted Dan Patton to find out if he knew why Russ Yarger didn't make it. He tried to call Russ and went straight to voicemail.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we will have to discuss that. I'll wait.
Do we have all commissioners here?
Bruce is present.
1, 2, 3, 4. Bruce present. Dave. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is interviews for the Berry County Road Commission. We have 2 applicants, Philip Joseph and David Solms. We will start with Mr. Joseph. Please, the floor is yours to give an opening statement and to tell us why you'd like to serve on the Road Commission.
Good morning, everyone. Yep, my name's Phil Joseph, as you said. Yeah, I have, I guess I would say, a burning passion to be involved. I have been involved policy-wise in every aspect except for the involvement part. So I figured this is time to do it. And as I look through what to do, the Road Commission seemed to be the best fit for me and my experience and where I can offer to the group and the commission and to the county and to where I live. In a simple statement, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Great, thank you. Mr. Solms?
Good morning, everybody. I am happy to be here. This is not my first go around, so it's great to see mostly familiar faces. Welcome to the new people on the commissioner board for selection. Always have been a very active person in the community, served on numerous boards, served on the airport board back in the, I want to say late 90s. Transitioned off from that. Road Commission came up approximately 12 years ago. I was appointed as a road commissioner. It has been a true pleasure to serve the county on the Road Commission board. I've served in various capacities. Currently, I serve on the board of Southern Michigan, the Southern Association of Michigan County Road Agencies. Had changed the name because they're not all county road commissions anymore. But I serve on that board. I've served as chairman of that board. I'm currently vice chair of that board. Very active within the road commission community. Attend a fair amount of conferences because road commission is very, very specific business. While it's a business per se, just like any organization, there are very specific laws, very specific acts that fund it, very specific acts that control liability and other aspects. So trying to make sure that as a board member, I'm thoroughly understanding all of the roles. But the biggest thing for me is being active in my community to make sure Berry County continues to be a great place to live and work.
Great, thank you. Questions? We are going to start with Commissioner Smelker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For Dave, can you currently tell me where Berry County sits in the rest of the state of Michigan on how their roads are evaluated?
So all the roads are evaluated, as John mentioned, or at least all primary roads are evaluated with a PASER system. Berry County is currently #1 in the state of rated roads. We've been right up there. We do bounce around a little bit with a couple of other counties, such as Kalamazoo has very good roads as well. But Berry County is in the top in the state traditionally year after year for roads. We also rate our local roads. It's not done with the state people doing that. It's done with our own local people. But we do rate every paved road for condition, and we are in the top of the state. And it's pretty easy to argue for us, if you include our local roads, we stay right at the top, where a lot of other counties would slide much further back.
Thank you.
You have any other questions, John?
One more, Mr. Phillip. Have you attended any road commission meetings?
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Connor.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple questions. The first question I have is the same one that I asked for Parks. When making a decision on a board, name 3 primary decision-making considerations that you would consider. I don't care. Phillip, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so number 1 for me is historical decisions that were made in the past. What works, what hasn't worked, what we can look at to base our decisions on. That's number 1, I think, for really any board, any decision made politically. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is the experience of the people involved with it. And who are we bringing in for these decisions? How are they being made? What expertise do we have? What research was done? That's number 2. You know, who's the experts in this, and how's it going to affect, and what's their opinion? Number 3 for me is the people, the public. Who's it affecting, and what do they think? Can we afford it? Is it a budgetary thing? Is it responsible? Is it a function of the government? That's my third thought process when we do that. So those for me are the top 3 things that I think about when we make any decision.
Thank you. And my second question to you would be, setting aside the roads part, the road commission pretty much governs its own self. What would you look at as far as that part of the commission, the road commission's responsibility on any changes that you would like to see at the road commission?
Yeah, so I know you just said, you know, the roads are great, and you said beyond that part. I think it's just like any other function. Are we managing ourselves appropriately? Are we managing the taxpayers' money appropriately? And, you know, I don't have visibility. Well, I do. I did look at some of the sheets as to what the spending was on and all that stuff. But, you know, take a self-audit. Are we being responsible? Are we being smart with where we spend our money or with the bids? What are we paying our people? I think that was a discussion with one of our earlier boards. He was saying, you know, are we paying our people fairly? Are they being overcompensated, undercompensated? Where are we getting our funding from? You know, those are all loose questions, but they're questions nonetheless that we need to take a look at. I think that's very important, is who are we representing in Barry County? Are our money being spent appropriately? Are we doing the right things with our policies? So yeah, I can't give you a solid answer because I got to take a look into everything that's actually happening and being spent on. But I think that's a question of every department, of a self-evaluation. As you know, our government today isn't the most responsible, at least on the national level. I think we do a very good job on a local level, and I think that's something that needs to be upheld regardless.
Thank you for those answers. Mr. Solms, David, are those same 2 questions to you?
Okay, so 3 primary decisions. You know, it's hard to narrow it down to 3 because a lot of things have lots of other things that come into play. But, you know, 3 first that come to mind for me is, having sat in the road commission board meetings, there's a lot of things that come to the road commission that are not necessarily business of the road commission. So number 1, you got to look at whether or not it's in the scope of something we should even be focusing on in the first place. Number 2, public input's always important as a public body. Unfortunately, it's not always the most positive decision to make, or the best decision isn't always the best for the public. So road commissions tend to be one of those things. You know, I'll bring up chip sealing. Everybody hates chip sealing of the roads. You're all familiar with it. Unfortunately, that's not a popular thing, but it's really the best thing, and that's why Barry County roads are at the top of the list. It's a hard decision to make, but nonetheless, we still have to make the right decision, whether or not it's the popular decision. And then third is always looking at staff for recommendations, looking for best practices. Are we truly following, what we should be doing? Are we sometimes on the leading edge? Back to the chip seal, Berry County has been on the leading edge of chip seals for decades, and data is finally catching up to us on that. It's starting to show significantly in our road quality. So making sure that you're always following those best practices, but not only just following them, looking ahead and seeing what else you can do as part of that. I wrote the questions down, Vivian. What was the second question? I'm sorry. I missed that one.
The second question was, aside from out there working on the roads and the road work, looking at the board in general and building the funding, whatever it is, looking at what would be best, changes that could be made to this board or the function or the whole road commission.
Sure. It's really, we've picked off a lot of the low hanging fruit at the road commission, squeezing those dollars. We're in a different situation in Berry County than the majority of the other counties. We do not have a retirement plan, per se pension plan. It is a 401k plan. We're only one of a couple in the state that have those. We switched many years ago. We don't have the legacy cost of health insurance that is out there for our retirees, like a lot of the other road commissions do. So when you look at those low-hanging fruit, it's hard to make big changes. I will say that we are very active in educating our state leaders as to best practices or what's needed in the road side. We do see quite a few things that pop up on the road commission side throughout the year. We do meet with Julie. We meet with other representatives. We meet with the senators. We meet anywhere we can throughout the whole road commission management structure, whether it's managing director, whether it's engineering, whether it's the commissioners. I think that's truly where the commissioners come into play at making the biggest changes, is through involvement at the state level, making sure that liability doesn't change significantly, making sure that funding levels continue on where they're promised currently, so that we keep getting that state general fund matches, keeping the relationships up with our townships that we have, where we're getting those dollars in from the townships as contributions towards the projects that we do in their township. Really, I see that as the biggest job for the commissioners, besides overseeing the budget, besides overseeing the top level staff. That truly comes down to the funding mechanism, where we have to be the advocates for the road commission, whether it's at the local level or the state level.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your answers. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you, Ben. First, I'd like to address Philip. Obviously, you're of a younger generation than I, which is almost anybody these days. But I would like to say it's so nice to see somebody of your age stepping up and being of concern with our community. Gives me great hope for the great community that we have now and the great community that will stay, with somebody of your age stepping up and being so interested. And also for David, you've obviously been participating for quite a long time in this, and that takes a lot to stay involved with it. So I want to thank you for doing that. I would like to say, however, Philip, for my records, how long have you actually been in Berry County?
So I moved up from Texas, 2000, I believe it was 18 now. Yeah, 2018 as I moved back. I'm originally from the east side of the state.
Okay.
And then I left for a few years to get out, came back because I needed to settle down with my family. I have a 2-year-old son and another one due next week. So I'm settled here, and this is where I'm going to be for a long time.
Perfect. Well, glad to have you. And David, I don't know you personally, but how long have you actually been in the county?
46 years.
Well, you've been
my whole life. Almost 46 in February. So, Yeah, I'm lifelong. I agree with your sentiment for Philip having somebody young. I was appointed as a road commissioner at the age of 34. I think I was the youngest in the state at the time, and going to the meetings, it was really obvious that I was the young guy in the group. So it is good to see young people getting involved in our community.
Absolutely. All right. That's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bruce. Hoot.
Yes, David, have you asked the employees if they have any suggestions for any improvements?
We are always in contact with employees. We see them on a fairly regular basis, not as much during COVID because they're just, we're trying to keep them as healthy as possible. We even have the trucks parked outside to make sure that they're not interacting in close confined spaces to maximize COVID risk as much as possible. So we do talk to the employees on a regular basis. My number's published. It's available. I will talk to anybody that wants to. I talk to the guys when I run into them on the streets. I talk to them at various times at the road commission itself.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Getty.
Hi, I'll direct this at Philip first. Are you familiar with Complete Streets policy, and does it have a place in our county road policy?
That is an excellent question that I do not have an answer for because I am not too familiar with that, and I do apologize about that. What I will say, though, to kind of save my butt a little bit, is one of the things I've learned at college, which I'm sure most of you have, is the number one thing I learned was how to learn and how to find things and get those things done. So obviously I've not been as involved as David has over the last 40 years or however long it is since the 90s, but I know how to figure things out and get that done. So I apologize. I don't have an answer for that at this moment.
David?
I am familiar with Complete Streets. I'm serving on the Blue Zones Committee for Complete Streets. So very familiar with that. I think there's a place for it. I think there's some challenges with it for the county roads, but I think it's worth working through those challenges and trying to figure it out for the cities, villages, townships, county, and how it all ties together.
Just so that everybody is aware, Complete Streets is just a philosophy of planning our roads for all users, not just vehicles, but pedestrians, bicycles, and things like that. And it is a real challenge. I'll agree with Dave across the county, you know, with funding and just with the roads themselves.
Thank you, Catherine. Dave Jackson.
Thank you. I have no questions. I think both candidates have had great input and great insight, so I appreciate your application. Thank you.
And my question for both applicants is, what can you do personally as a member of the Road Commission to improve the quality of Barry County streets? Or conversely, what have you done personally to improve the quality of Barry County streets?
Who would you like to start with, Ben?
I'll start with you, David.
Okay. Well, I've been in fact active as the road commissioner, one of the 3 road commissioners for Barry County. Some of the different things I've personally kind of pushed for at the road commission. One, whether it's positive or not at times, Facebook, I've really pushed heavily on that Facebook side of the organization, making sure that we are engaging our public there, and we have very good conversation on that. On the aspect of other aspects, as far as the finance side, I don't know if you guys have seen in our gravel years, we now have the trailer that almost looks like a grain hopper where it's sloped and it empties through the middle. I found those out west and pushed for the road commission to at least try one of those. I think we now have 7 of those for laying gravel. They've been working very efficiently for us and helping with that gravel application. So I'm always out there looking for different things. I'm familiar with the fleet side. I'm familiar with the business aspect of it. So for me, it's kind of getting out there and making sure that you're seeing everything that's out there and trying to find different stuff in different states and bringing it back.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
Were you going to allow Philip to answer that question?
That is an excellent point. I'm sorry, Philip.
That's all right. Sometimes you already have your decision made. You don't need to hear it, right? I'm just kidding. So
no, that's unfair.
I'm just kidding with you. So I'm going to give you a really long-winded answer real quick. Obviously, due to the lack of experience I have on the board, I have to paint a little parable. So what I do have a lot of experience with is coaching. I've coached wrestling for a long time. It's what I did growing up. And when I coach, I was a head coach for a while. A lot of people have this idea of, man, I want to be a state champ. Hey, I want to go to college. Hey, I want to win nationals. Or how do I win this match? And the answer is, it's not something you can just learn in a practice. It's not a move. It's not a technique. What it is it's a lifestyle. It's an entire program put together of self-discipline that you learn, and the byproduct of that is winning. And a lot of people focus on winning, and the reality is we need to be doing the right things every single day. We need an entire program that cultivates an environment of winning. Now, to translate that into a business aspect or a government aspect, it's the same thing. So we need to create an environment, like David said, hey, maybe we need on every aspect. We need a social environment. We need a business environment. We need, working with other officials. Everything works together. There's no such thing as, wow, we did this one thing and we have the best roads in the whole state, in the whole country. It's an entire program. And that's what I'm interested in, is are we working on all cylinders to make sure that we are doing the right thing? And if not, what do we need to do there? So it's the understanding of how to run organizations that produce the byproducts of a good organization, which therefore create good roads, good coordination, good communication, good working together with other people. So there's not a specific answer, but it's an entire program and organization and culture that's created through that understanding, in my opinion, that does that. And that's really all I have about that.
Well, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, we need a 2-minute break for technology. Is there any objection? We'll be back in a couple minutes. Are we all here?
Catherine is.
Bruce is here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Vivian.
Good. Good. Who we were getting worried
Good.
about?
Who we were getting worried about it.
Okay, commissioners.
Okay, commissioners.
We're getting a feedback loop.
We're getting a feedback loop.
Can they hear that loop?
Yes.
If I speak into this microphone,
Yes.
can you guys
If
hear
I
a loop?
speak into this microphone, can you guys hear a loop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, let's just.
Yes.
No, we're not going to deal with the feedback loop.
We're not going to deal with the feedback loop.
You guys agree? I mean, I hate the sound of my
You
own
guys
voice.
agree? I mean, I hate the sound of my own voice.
That's too much Ben Geiger.
Yeah.
Too much
All right.
Ben Geiger.
I know you're the
Yeah.
chair,
All right.
Ben, but we only need to hear you
I
once.
know you're the chair, Ben, but we only need to hear you once.
Okay. Is that enough, Ben Geiger? Just enough?
Perfect.
Okay. So we're going to go through consensus recommendations.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I apologize to interrupt. I don't know if you noticed that I just saw Russ Yarger's name pop up as a participant.
Yeah, I saw that. We'll discuss that when we get to parks
Okay,
appointments.
if that matters or not.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, whatever you did, when you changed the screen, I could only see like 2 other commissioners. So in these discussions, it's always great to see what the other commissioners' body language is while something's being discussed, kind of like being there. So whatever you did, that it's back. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I've talked with a lot of you commissioners about how we can make our meetings more streamlined. And if we talked about if there's consensus on something, we don't need to vote on it a bunch of times. So I'd like to start with, is there do we have a consensus that Dwayne Secord is a good applicant for the mental health board? Does anybody have an issue with that?
Good.
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 Yes, it's acceptable.
All right. Road commission appointment.
Are you just going to move that onto the board then without a?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll get to that. Road commission appointment. What are the commissioners' thoughts?
I think David Solms has been doing an excellent job in representing the county for several years. As he mentioned, he's on several boards. The state of the roads in the county are fantastic at this point. So I would support continuing with David as a road commissioner.
Commissioners have any other thoughts?
I would like to say David has been doing a good job, and I appreciate all of his hard work. I do think that Philip Joseph brings a fresh set of eyes. I know that there have been people that have had some issues with the road commission, not necessarily perhaps the roads, but the inner workings of it and how it meets its constituents' needs. I get a lot of calls regarding them. I also would like to say that he is really a very conservative individual, and I think that he could look at it with a fresh set of eyes and change some things within the organization itself to help with it being a better organization. He has a business degree. He has a minor in accounting. He's a conservative. He wants to get involved. He's a very good steward. He understands how the government should work and not how it does work.
I would have to agree with.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with what Vivian brought up, that he is got a lot of education, and he would be good on there.
My only comment is that I think Dave has done an exemplary job. He takes his role very seriously. He's sought educational opportunities. While I appreciate Philip's eagerness to serve the county, I hesitate to replace somebody on a board that has been really an exemplary member of that board and really a contributor.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
I would just agree with Catherine on that, on the statement she just made.
Okay. Well, we have two fine applicants with different backgrounds, different views. We thank them both for applying. We're going to call the roll now, and when your name is called, state your preferred candidate, Joseph or Solms. So, Madam Chair, are you ready? Or Madam Clerk? Okay.
Campbell.
Solms.
Connor.
Joseph.
Getty.
Solms.
Gibson.
Joseph.
Jackson.
Solms.
Smelker.
Solms.
Geiger.
Solms. So it appears the consensus of the board is David Solms. Now we're moving on. I'm still getting feedback.
I'm going to I got to mute my.
Can you mute? Okay. Now we're moving on to the Parks and Recreation Commission appointments. We do have Russell Yarger on the phone to interview. What are the board's wishes?
I would like to hear him.
Yeah. Okay.
I would like to know what the issue it was that he wasn't on for the interviews.
Okay. Russell, are you on the line?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. What happened?
I missed the email, I guess.
Oh, it's okay. We all get a lot of emails. So I'm going to give the floor to you to make an opening statement and tell us why you'd like to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Well, I've been on the commission for a term, and I really like the park. I think it's a big asset to the county. Most times the park's open. I work at the general store and the hardware, which I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. The Halloween party's great to little kids. You know, just like to help out around there and be on the board. I've got time to go out and look at things by myself, and it's a great place to be. It's something that I like to spend my time at. And, you know, at this point in my life, I got some time, and it's something I've chosen to use it on.
Great, thank you. Our first question will come from Commissioner Catherine Getty.
Russ, I appreciate the volunteerism that you've put in at the park. I'll ask you the same question I asked Sarah and Debbie. What is your experience with securing grants, writing grants, administering grants, and if you could just let us know what your experience is.
I guess the only grants I've been involved with is with the fire department in Freeport. I've been the president of the fire board there for over 20 years. So I've been involved with a few. I've never wrote any myself. You know, I've been at the table where we discuss things to put in the grants and things like that. So I guess I'm not a grant writer or anything like that. So.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Commissioner Gibson.
Yes, Russ, do you have any idea for any improvements?
Well, as far as I know, we got a pavilion that needs some work on it, if not tore down and rebuilt. You know, we've got an engineer working on a vision, a tentative, whatever word you want to use, for maybe a campground. You know, we also, it's still on the docket of a playground, accessible playground, but you know, that all takes money. So we're trying to work through it.
Has there been any grants applied for this?
No.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Dave Jackson.
No questions. Thank you for reapplying.
John Smelker.
I have no questions for Russ. Thank you for reapplying and thank you for the work you put in out there.
Vivian Connor.
I have no questions.
Bruce Campbell.
I'd just like to say to Russ that I don't know Russ personally. I hope to meet him soon. And but I can see that he's been a very active part in our community, and I just want to thank him for his continued interest in it. Thank you, Russ.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, thank you, Russ, for your time. We're going to deliberate on this and proceed. Wilson. Okay, so commissioners, we have 3 applicants for 2 seats. When your name is called, give your top 2 applicants. Hold on. And then the live voting will appear right on the screen. So, Bruce Campbell, who are your top 2 applicants?
Jensen Yarger.
Connor. Vivian, who are your top 2 applicants?
Nelson and Deborah. I can't think of her last name.
Jensen.
Jensen, thank you.
Catherine Getty, who are your top 2?
Jensen and Nelson.
Who are your top 2?
Jensen and Nelson.
Jackson, who are your top two?
Jackson and Nelson.
Mm-hmm. John Smelker?
Nelson and Yarger.
And mine are Nelson and Yarger. So here is the breakdown. So Deborah Jensen has 5 votes, Sarah Nelson has 6 votes, and Russell Yarger has 3 votes. So is it the consensus of the committee that we appoint Jensen and Nelson?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're going to do this by one vote. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the appointment of the following 4 individuals. Dwayne Secord to the Berry County Community Mental Health Board for a 3-year term that began on April 1st, 2020 and expires on March 31st, 2023. David Solms to the Berry County Road Commission for a 6-year term that began on January 1st, 2021 and expires on December 31st, 2026. And Deborah Jensen and Sarah Nelson to the Berry County Parks and Recreation Commission for 1-year terms that begin on January 1st, 2021 and expire on December 31st, 2021.
So moved, Jackson.
Support, Betty.
I moved and supported. Discussion. These recommendations will go to the Board of Commissioners individually like they always have. We're just voting, sending the recommendations in one block.
You explain that? I mean, we usually act on the one vote.
Yeah, but if there's consensus on the board, we don't need to take a whole bunch of votes. Like, there's no reason to have a roll call vote on Dwayne Secord. I mean, it's going to be in the bulk of recommendations that we send to the full board. I'm just trying to avoid having votes where there's consensus.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
But you are saying that we will vote on them individually when at the full board, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the consensus recommendation, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Carrie Selleck, 2021 Indigent Defense Attorney Contracts.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hold on just a second, Carrie. Lost the motion head. Need to bring the motion to the floor. If somebody has it in front of them, they're welcome to make it. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached 2021 contracts for Indigent Defense Counsel Services with Jackie Baker, Carol Dwyer, Shane Henry, Kristen Hole, James Kinney, Gordon Shane McNeil, Catherine Russell, Stephen Storrs, Lionel Woolley, and Kimberly Young.
So moved, Smelker.
That motion is made by Smelker, supported by Gibson. Discussion? Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning.
So what do we have here?
I'm back.
So these are the 10 attorneys who have signed up for the contract for this fiscal year. Mr. Trump did choose not to, made the difficult decision not to continue on for 2021. We certainly thank him for his service. He did an excellent job for his clients and continues to finish the cases he had from 2020. We are happy to welcome Lionel Woolley He is renting office space from a local attorney, Carol Dwyer. He has 8.5 years of criminal defense experience. He comes to us from Eaton County. We've met with him. He's met with the court staff. We're very excited about the experience that he brings to our list as well. Our attorneys continue to do very well in these tough times, continue to put the needs of their clients at the forefront. We're doing a lot of Zoom court hearings, as everyone is aware. We are also trying to keep things moving. I think Berry County is doing an excellent job of having its court system continue to run in these difficult times. That's not the case everywhere. So we continue, I think, to stand out in that. But these are 10 very excellent attorneys who have been doing a very good job under these difficult circumstances.
Thank you, Carrie. Discussion from commissioners.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Carrie, have you always just had 10? Haven't you had more than that?
No, we have just had 10 since this office started, and I believe there was only 10 in the 12 years that I was on the list before this office began. I think it's always been, at least in the last 2 years, it's always been capped at 10.
Okay. Were there any other attorneys that wanted to be on or applied to be on the roster?
No, not this year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached 2021 contracts for Indigent Defense Counsel services with Jackie Baker, Carol Dwyer, Shane Henry, Kristen Hole, James Kinney, Gordon Shane McNeil, Catherine Russell, Stephen Storrs, Lionel Woolley, and Kimberly Young. All those in favor, vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dave Shinevere.
Hello.
Looking over my shoulder.
Okay.
Hold on, I got to bring the motion to the floor. Dealing with paper copies here. Someone have that motion in front of them.
I have it.
Go ahead and read it, Hoop.
To recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase of goods and services quoted by BIS CO for the improvement, stability, and uniformity of the audio video requirements of the courtroom in the amount of $12,154.75 with funds to be paid from the data processing fund.
Second.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Smelker. Discussion. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Need to thank you.
I guess I'm not the only one that doesn't like hearing the sound.
Are we good? Okay. That's what happens when you have two Zooms in the same room. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, what this pertains to is a capital budget request for 2021. This is that in effect. Inez Straub is going to be coming, I believe, after me with some, it's kind of a package deal, but this one is something that I requested it in the capital budget. The purpose of this request is to standardize court audio. We have 3 courtrooms, and ever since I've been in charge of IT, with the courts, we've been having ongoing process to try to streamline and make all the courtrooms, give them all the same technology so that court reporters can swap between courtrooms or judges can swap between courtrooms, and technical support in all the courtrooms is the same. So there are a lot of parts and pieces in this quote, but essentially that's what all these pieces will do is allow us to any tech support person to walk into a courtroom and expect to see the same video audio setup.
Thank you, David. Questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
Yeah, Catherine.
Have we used this company in the past?
Yeah, that is the reason why you don't have 3 quotes in front of you. BIS is our courtroom audio video consultant. A few years ago, when we did a major overhaul, there was 3 different companies. BIS became our choice provider for court audio video. So yes, they are our current consultant for this.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question then. Now with that information, so
Commissioner Connor.
Thank you. So if you were talking about the circuit court redo, and are you just talking about recording, or are you talking about the audio, because it is still very difficult to hear in that courtroom?
Right. I believe the court administrator is going to be coming forward after me.
Okay, she'll cover that?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is more audio recording from a technical aspect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah.
David, where do you see this fitting in? Is this kind of an end as far as our technology upgrades that are needed? Are we catching up, or are we going to be current? Where do you see us? Is there more investment needed in this going forward, or is this going to kind of complete where we need to be? That and potentially what I see coming next on the agenda with the portable recording equipment.
Right. So we've worked together, Inez and I, on this. The portable recording equipment, our plan is to use that portability if we need to still during this pandemic. If we need to do a trial or a jury call remotely, the equipment she's requesting will allow us to do that. But then again, it will also fit in the new hearing room and become permanent. And that equipment falls right in line with the equipment that I'm requesting. So it's going to bring everything up to the same level.
Okay. That was my question to follow up was, after we get through this pandemic, is this equipment going to be useful? And I think you answered that question for us.
We're going to make it permanent.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on. Per the rules, I have to give other commissioners an opportunity to ask a question first before commissioners get a second. Does any other commissioner wish to ask a question? I have one question. What are the deficiencies of our current system?
We currently, the major deficiency that this is going to supplant is we're going from analog to digital on our cameras in the courtrooms. The circuit courtroom already has digital cameras, and they work great. The other 2 courtrooms do not, so this is going to make them digital as well. The other thing is there is a part on all 3 of these systems called a downscaler. Without getting too technical, the downscaler converts the audio from one format to another so that the court recorder system can detect it. That piece in the middle causes a lot of problems for us. We've replaced them several times, and they're not reliable. So what this software will do, or this change will do, is to allow us to take those out of the equation. So those are the 2 major things. There's one on the video side, one on the audio side.
Thank you. Commissioner Connor?
Thank you. When you mentioned a new hearing room and when you answered David's question, Can you tell me what you were referring to?
In the renovations that are planned to take place in the Courts and Law building.
Oh, thank you.
One of those reservations is another magistrate hearing room, I believe, on the second floor. So that will need that system.
Yes, thank you very much.
Any other questions from commissioners? Any questions from the public? If so, please unmute your microphone right now. There are no questions from the public, and therefore the question for the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the purchase of goods and services quoted by BIS Company for the improvement, stability, and uniformity of the audio-video requirements of the courtroom in the amount of $12,154.75, with funds to be paid from the Data Processing Fund. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. Do we have Inez with us?
Yes, you do.
All right.
Good morning.
At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for the court to purchase a portable court recording system in the amount of $31,734.
I'll make that motion.
Support, Jackson.
Support.
That motion is made by Gibson, supported by Jackson. Good morning, Inez. Why don't you give us some information on what this request is about?
Good morning. Well, as part of the CESF fund, it was a contract that we submitted back in September and were awarded. We were required to identify equipment that will assist us in preparing for and responding to COVID. In light of having the social distancing requirements, we have had to move some of our jury selection off-site to the Expo Center. And we noticed that that is quite the project. So we're hoping that this remote proceeding or remote system will eliminate some of the additional systems we had to put in place previously. For example, in the past, when we had a jury selection at the Expo, we had to have someone from IT present the whole entire selection time. And the reason being is that they had a system in place that would take and capture the external camera and capture the audio and feed it into Zoom so that the court recorder who was in the courtroom could capture that proceeding taking place and record it in our court recording system. That's quite time consuming to have someone at IT from IT sitting there the whole entire time providing us that service when all we could do is just unload a system and roll it out there, mount the speakers on the speaker rack and have it all available to us with microphones and the video cameras. And it also provides capturing the Zoom if someone was appearing by Zoom. The system, I think Dave touched a little bit on what it will also do. We've talked about having it be used in magistrate's hearing room once that's created, but it also allows us to use it in multiple other areas. For example, if the judge has to do an in-chamber interview or take some testimony out of the presence of the jury, we can use that portable system to move it into that area and still record on our recording device, which is extremely helpful for a transcriber who has to prepare a transcript down the road to have a reliable system, a consistent system that they can go ahead and isolate channels when needed and have it all housed in one area instead of in multiple locations and trying to download software to different systems or programs. The grant that we applied for will be reimbursing the court for this expense. And so it should be no out of pocket for the county other than just the initial and then receiving the reimbursement.
Questions from commissioners? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners. Sorry, my screen is lagging. I can't see who's making the request.
I'm sorry, it was me, Vivian. Thank you.
Okay.
So, Inez, I guess my question that I had originally asked David about was, when he was talking about that equipment, how does this help with the hearing in the courtroom? The sound, it's sometimes very difficult to hear what's going on when you're sitting in the circuit courtroom.
Sure. Well, what we're talking about is the portable unit right now. I had to remove the requests. Well, I'm still working on getting bids for the sound dampening panels, and I think that's what's going to assist in improving the acoustics in circuit court. The reason that I had to submit this separately, I wanted to originally submit it all at the same time, but it's been quite the project. There are not a lot of vendors out there that provide this type of service. And so to get three bids has been challenging. Not any two panels are the same. So you're getting 3 quotes for 3 different systems, or it's a panel. So each one does a little bit something different. One projects the sound, one absorbs the sound. So they're not all consistently the same. And
okay.
So that will come down the road.
Okay, so yes, before you go on, none of this equipment will help the current problem. It's addressing other issues, and we still are looking at that circuit court problem.
Yes.
So, okay, I understand that. But I want to thank you for your diligence in securing this grant to pay for this system so that there isn't any money out of the general fund or out of the court funds. So I appreciate your hard work at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any additional questions, Commissioner?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Anybody on the phone have a question? If so, please unmute your mic, make yourself known. Hearing no such request, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval for the court to purchase a portable court recording system in the amount of $31,734. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Inez.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Brown.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the...
Before you begin, Michael, I want to ask the board, since we consolidated the other 3 appointments into one vote, do we want to vote on the first 3 of Michael's items in one vote?
That's fine.
They're uncontested appointments.
That's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. You may proceed.
Sure. So the first item is recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Holly Pinero as recommended by the Berry County Humane Society to serve as the Humane Society representative for a 1-year term on the Berry County Animal Shelter Advisory Board. It begins on 1/1/21 and expires on 12/31/21. You have in your packet a listing of the Animal Shelter Advisory Board members, as well as correspondence to Pam Jarvis from the Humane Society advising of their election of Holly Pinero to be their representative on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board. I'd be happy to answer any questions relative to that you might have.
Keep going with the next one.
No, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Michael, did we get the minutes of the meeting where she was appointed by the by the Humane Society? Did we get their meeting minutes?
I don't know that. I know I don't have them. Vivian, I don't know if we received them. We can reach out and ask for them if you'd like.
Yes, I would like to see that organization, did choose her to be their representative. That's usually included in this type of board appointment when it comes from an organization. So yes.
I'll make a note. We will get those.
As long as we have them by the board meeting, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Any other questions? I guess we're good to proceed, Michael.
All right. The next is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Michael Spangler to serve on the Berry County Veterans Affairs Committee for a 4-year term that began on 1/1/21 and expires on 12/31/24. I do believe that if anyone has questions, Mr. Spangler, he was on the meeting. I don't know if...
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there he is. Just got to find him. So Mr. Spangler is joining us today on the Zoom meeting. If anybody has questions.
Any questions for Mr. Spangler? Thank you for your application and your service.
Thank you.
Michael or Ben, may I speak a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
So this is Patrick, the coordinator for Veterans Affairs. And I know that Mike's reappointment was as an incumbent and a sole applicant at the time, but I would like to point out his efforts this year. He has been an invaluable asset to the board, and with everything that we've had to do virtually, we've had a few in-person meetings earlier in the summer, but everything has pretty much gone virtually, and he has become one of the most valuable members of this committee. So we certainly appreciate his service and continued service and the reappointment to this. Thank you.
So, Mr. Spangler, what conflict did you serve in?
I joined in 1991, so Persian Gulf 1 all the way up to 2014. So just under 24 years of service.
Well, you're in good company here on this Board of Commissioners. We have 3 veterans, Commissioner Gibson, Smelker, and Campbell.
Nice to meet you all. I've seen a lot of these names, and I'm finally able to put some faces to these names that I've been recognizing for over a year. So I appreciate the opportunity to allow me to sit and observe this. It's helping me visually to put these faces to these names.
Great. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Spangler. Next, Michael.
And then the last of the appointments is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint the following members to serve on the Community Corrections Advisory Board. These are for 3-year terms that begin on 1/1/21 and expire on 12/31/23. The first is Christine Heyer, who is representing Service Area. David Tripp, representing the Criminal Defense Attorneys, and Amy Graham, representing the Workforce Investment Board. My apologies, I thought there were 3. There is an additional one and that would be Carrie Larrabee, representing Communications Media.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Holly Pinario as recommended by the Berry County Humane Society to serve as the Humane Society representative for a one-year term on the Berry County Animal Shelter Advisory Board that begins on January 1st, 2021, and expires on December 31st, 2021. To recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Michael Spangler to serve on the Berry County Veterans Affairs Committee for a 4-year term that began on January 1st, 2021, and expires on December 31st, 2024. And to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint the following members to serve on the Berry County Community Corrections Advisory Board for 3-year terms that began on January 1st, 2021 and expire on December 31st, 2023. Christine Heyer, Service Area Representative; David H. Tripp, Criminal Defense Attorney Representative; Amy Graham, Workforce Investment Board Representative; and Carrie Larrabee, Communications Media Representative.
I'll make that motion.
Support Jackson.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Jackson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Connor. I tried to get your attention prior to the discussion of these 3 items.
We're on discussion now.
Yes. Would you be, well, when you asked if we could do these all 3 together, I was trying to get noticed, but I didn't get noticed to speak. Would you mind taking the first one for the Animal Shelter Advisory Board and make it a separate, because we're still lacking one piece of information?
We will, it's going to go to the Board of Commissioners separately anyway, so you could remove it from consent agenda and have it discussed separately. Okay. Or are you saying you want a separate vote on this now?
Well, I was just thinking it would be easier to do it now, but that's what I was asking.
It's going to get recommended to the Board of Commissioners anyway. And like you said before, if the information is in hand by next week, then that would be sufficient, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That would
Any other
be
discussion?
Sufficient on that particular one. And the other thing is it's not a reappointment.
I understand. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Next item, Michael, MERS Healthcare Savings Program.
Yes, thank you. This is a motion to recommend. Whoops.
This time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Resolution 2105, Municipal Employees Retirement System Healthcare Savings Program Uniform Resolution.
So moved.
Support. Getty.
Michael, discussion.
Yes, this is the first resolution. It's the uniform resolution, it's called, that opens up the HCSP, the Healthcare Savings Program. We are in the process of negotiating with bargaining groups that if you may get out of the OPEB business, other post-employment benefits, that is primarily retiree health care for us. We do have a little bit of retiree life insurance. It also falls within the definition of other post-employment benefits, both of which require us to meet certain GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board standards. What that really means is that we have to report all of our OPEB liabilities and unfunded accrued liabilities associated with those other post-employment benefits. As time goes on, those reports have become costly and time-consuming. We believe that our plan is a bit outdated, and we would like to, when I say outdated, our retiree healthcare plan, our reports associated with GASB are current. we have begun negotiating with the bargaining groups that we would transition from a, for lack of a term, a defined benefit style retiree healthcare program that provides the county with an other post-employment benefit liability and potentially unfunded accrued liability into a healthcare savings program through MERS, whereby we would buy out, if you may, the current liabilities, deposit that money into a healthcare savings plan with MERS, and then contribute on a monthly basis an amount in a 401k or a defined contribution style benefit program. So this is the resolution that initiates that and begins the process. It'll be followed up then by individual participation agreements by bargaining group, the first of which comes after this. So I'm going to stop for just a minute, trying to avoid a bunch of acronyms, but I'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, we in government love acronyms, don't we?
Well, yeah, the industry seems to be as good at it as well. So,
Mr. Chair, I have a question if you have it.
Yeah, floor is open for questions.
Michael, on this has been okayed by the corrections union. What if some of the other unions turn it down? Are we still going to go ahead with corrections, or does this have to be a county-wide approval?
That's a good question, John, and it does not have to be county-wide. That's our preference. It does have to be by bargaining group. So in this case, corrections have agreed to it, ratified it. So we'll implement theirs. If there are groups or a group that doesn't, we'll deal with that bridge, cross that bridge when it comes, but we do not have to ultimately have everybody in it. Our goal is to move everybody there, because whether we have only a few or everybody, we still have the costs associated with and the work associated with the OPEB reports, but the benefit in that case is that it will reduce our OPEB, other post-employment benefits liability significantly, regardless.
Questions from commissioners? The floor is now open.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, floor is open.
Thank you. Michael, I have a question about the funding of this. Who pays for the administration of this at MERS? How is that determined for them to administer this program?
So the administration ultimately comes in that when they invest the funds on our behalf, there's a fee, if you may, an investment fee that comes through that, and that's where MERS then covers its costs associated with managing or administering the plan.
Like the other plans that we have with them.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there additional questions? Any questions from the public? If so, please unmute your microphone now and make yourself known. Hearing no such request, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Resolution 2105, Municipal Employees Retirement System Healthcare Savings Program Uniform Resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached MERS Healthcare Savings Program participation agreement for the Berry County Corrections Unit employees.
So moved, Jackson.
Support, Gibson.
Motion is made by Jackson, supported by Gibson. Discussion, Michael.
Sure. So following with Commissioner Smelker's comment, the Corrections Division have ratified the agreement that we reached with them, which included participating in the MERS Healthcare Savings Program. So we will, now that the the uniform resolution has been agreed to, the participation agreement is next, and this happens to be just for the corrections unit. So as we enter into agreements with other divisions or groups, we'll bring additional participation agreements forward. So this just spells out with the corrections division themselves.
Discussion. Any commissioner have any comments or questions? Any questions from the public? If so, please unmute your microphone now and make yourself known. Hearing no such request, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached MERS Healthcare Savings Program participation agreement for the Berry County Corrections Unit employees. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Commissioners. On a previous version of this cow agenda, the second limited public comment was deleted. So limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Please raise your digital hand now. Those by phone should press *9 now. The administrator will tally the hands and announce the first speakers.
You're muted, Michael.
Thank you, Commissioner Connor. My apologies. Mr. Chairman, it appears that we have 2 individuals that would like to speak. The first, I believe, is Joel Ibbotson.
Good morning again. This is Joel. Can you hear me?
Yes, Joel.
Hello. Okay, thank you. I'd like to call attention to the elephant in the room. Why is it the county is enforcing the MDHHS orders when social distancing and mask wearing is not practiced by 2 of the participants in the courtroom there behind Chair Geiger? We the people have been patient. We the people have been long suffering. We the people have sent petitions. We the people have sent agenda requests. We the people have held a peaceable assembly with well over 100 in attendance. We the people gave public comments. Where are the commissioners? Is our voice falling on deaf ears? Do we the people have a voice? Why are we fiddling with a government service such as Parks and Recs when we can't even use it during this constitutional crisis? It sure looks to me like this meeting is twiddling its thumbs while the proverbial Rome burns. I sure am glad I do not own a restaurant in this county. Am I mad? You betcha. The only thing we know to do now is to start filing with the courts. It is becoming apparent that this is the only way for we the people to discuss anything eye to eye with our so-called public servants. I feel literally sick to my stomach right now. You guys won't even mention the word restaurant, let alone discuss it at a meeting. Restaurants be damned in Berry County. I am done.
Is there further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, Rich Temke also has his hand up.
All right, Mr. Temke, you're recognized.
All right, thank you very much. First, I'd like to start by
commending the chairman for running of the meeting and during the interview process for the various boards. Was pretty impressed with the in-depth questions from the commissioners. So I appreciate the fact that y'all take that very seriously. I wanted to follow up regarding the question that Dwayne answered regarding services to the homeless, and just wanted to provide a little bit more information there that about 18 months or so ago that the Berry County Community Mental Health did start a intensive case management outreach program. So we work in collaboration with United Way, with Patrick, who was on earlier, and the Hastings Police Department. And so we go out, meet with the individuals that are homeless, try to build relationships with them, seek treatment for them, and to further their path of recovery. So just wanted to pass on that information. So appreciate the time.
Thank you, Rich. Is there further discussion? I will say it has been a while since we have had our health officer here to give an update on vaccinations, and it would be, I think, beneficial for the board to get an update there. Maybe we can have a discussion about some of the topics that were mentioned here today in public comment. Any other commissioner want to comment on that? Any other commissioner want to comment? I'm not sure if my computer froze up. Did you hear anything, Pam? Okay. Hearing no such request and without objection, the committee will now adjourn.